Live from KSAT 12, the Nightbeat starts right now.
Of course, tonight we hope that you're staying nice and cozy and safe, but we got to start with the weather, right? It's been the story for the past several days.
Yeah, if you don't know why we're starting with the weather, take a walk outside. Mia Montgomery is here to get you ready for tonight and tomorrow morning, even for some kids going off to school. Mia.
Exactly, and that's why I want to start with tomorrow morning, specifically for those kiddos and also the parents that are heading back to work. Want to get you an update on, yes, the cold, but also the winds. By the way, precipitation is done. Not expecting any more light ice to form or anything like that. We are dry throughout the remainder of this Arctic cold spell. Tomorrow morning, hard freeze, around 18 degrees here in San Antonio by 7 a.m. But here's the thing, wind gusts are going to kick up through the overnight hours and even into tomorrow morning, gusting upwards of 30 to 35 miles per hour. So while the thermometers will be still plenty cold in the teens, wind chills, what you're dressing for when you step outside, in the single digits, maybe even up into the hill country, a few degrees below zero. So already as you're making your mental checklist for tomorrow morning before heading to bed, be sure that you definitely layer up the kiddos as well as yourself. You'll want all of those layers before stepping outside. We will see more sunshine. It still will be cold into the afternoon, but I do think we briefly rise above that 32-degree threshold into the afternoon, around 35 for that forecast high. So again, wind chills, the big story tomorrow morning. Hard freezes, yes, tomorrow and also into Wednesday. That's our last hard freeze in the works for right now. Upper teens, low 20s, and that precipitation is finished. Road conditions already improving, but can't completely rule out a stubborn, isolated slick spot, maybe on those elevated surfaces by tomorrow morning as well. So still be careful. So we're going to talk all about this even in more depth and detail. Get to the rest of the forecast coming up in just a few.
Bundle up those kids in the morning.
Yes.
Thank you, man. Now, we've been watching notifications from local school districts today about any delays or closures. So far, only Carrizo Springs, Goliad, and Blanco ISDs will be closed tomorrow. Harper ISD on a 2-hour delayed start. We'll continue to track any closures or delays that might come in. You can find that list by scanning this QR code or by going to KSAT.com. ERCOT once again asking people to conserve electricity. The state's power regulator releasing a statement saying they are expecting, quote, tight grid conditions, end quote, due to the freezing temperatures. They're asking people to conserve electricity between the hours of 6 and 9 a.m. tomorrow specifically. ERCOT also expecting similar grid conditions on Wednesday. The ERCOT Weather Watch in effect through Wednesday.
Now, we can't forget about our animals in this cold weather. If you don't bring them inside, here's the thing, you could get a big fine. In a social media post, Animal Care Services said that it would have, quote, zero tolerance for weather-related violations. Anybody who breaks pet laws could have their pet impounded and also be fined up to $2,000. So here's what pet owners need to remember. Bring your pet inside, out of the cold. Also, make sure that they have access to food and clean water. It's also a good idea to check for any stray dogs or cats that may be underneath your car before you start it. They usually do that so that they can keep warm. Now, speaking of cars, many people in Texas are going to be dealing with icy roads tomorrow morning. According to Drive Texas, that's mostly happening in the north and east areas of Texas. Now, you actually compare that to where we are here in South Central Texas, and you look here. Listen, in comparison, it's really not that bad, but while the roads may not be as slick here, drivers should still be ready for the bitter cold.
And it's important to know what adjustments you need to make when you're driving out in the extreme cold. The Night Team's Patty Santos explains how you can avoid being left stranded.
In less than 5 minutes, Jay Neal at this auto parts store at Goliad and Pecan Valley Drive gave our battery a free test.
Good.
Looks good. He says the cool weather can push batteries and vehicle engines to the brink.
You definitely want to make sure your transmission and oil is on level. Because the harder your truck has to run in this type of cold weather, you're quick to break down.
Luckily, the KSAT weather team says icy roads shouldn't be much of a problem, but the cold will linger. Sergeant Orlando De Luna with the Texas Department of Public Safety urges drivers to carry a blanket, water, and food in their trunks in case of a breakdown.
Because the worst thing we want is a vehicle that doesn't start in the morning.
To ensure safe travel, De Luna says start by checking the tread and air pressure.
You want to make sure that you also have in your vehicle a jack, the proper tool to remove that lug nut.
Then take a look under the hood. Make sure the fluid levels and coolant are topped off.
You want to inspect your windshield wipers because we're defrosting the windshield in the morning and we want to make sure they're properly working.
AAA says dead batteries are one of the top service calls in Texas during cold weather. The average battery life is 3 years. Some batteries have a sticker with a purchase year. But if you don't see one, call the store where you bought it.
And all they have to do is just pull up your phone number, your name, and pull up when you purchased the battery, and be able to give the information easily over the phone.
Patty Santos, KSAT 12 News.
Every year, the Martin Luther King Jr. March is one of the most anticipated events in the city. This year, it was called off because of the bitter cold weather. Pittman Sullivan Park, usually bustling with people, empty this morning. Instead of the crowds, workers dismantled the stage cautiously to avoid falling ice. And while the decision was not an easy one, in the end, the city decided the extreme temperatures were enough of a safety hazard to call it off. At last check, no plan to reschedule the march for this year, but March organizers say without a march, hopefully Dr. King's message of equality and justice still resonates.
Now, new tonight, this Thursday, the Justice Department is expected to release its critical incident report on the shooting at Robb Elementary.
Yeah, that's according to Uvalde CISD Superintendent Ashley Cholas. She told the district school board at tonight's regular meeting that she was notified earlier today. That report will come more than 18 months, a year and a half after the shooting on May 24th, 2022. Days after the shooting, the Justice Department said it would review the law enforcement response. At the time, the DOJ said its goal was to, quote, provide an independent account of law enforcement actions and responses that day and to identify lessons learned and best practices to help first responders prepare for and respond to active shooter events, end quote. Again, we're expecting that report on Thursday.
And now we're going to switch gears. We have a closer look tonight at the money the Bexar County District Attorney is spending. Last month, the public relations company sent KSAT an email offering an interview with District Attorney Joe Gonzalez.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a surprise considering we'd been trying to get the DA to sit down with us on at least 4 different occasions. Those requests met with rejections and cancellations from his office. The Night Team's Daniela Ibarra looked into the PR company's contract with the DA's office.
And she found that the DA's office is paying close to $50,000 for a public safety campaign.
This is Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez with an important safety message.
That radio ad ran for 2 weeks with a hefty price tag, $49,500 to be exact. Documents obtained by KSAT show the Bexar County District Attorney's Office contracted KGB Texas Communications, a public relations firm, in mid-December. The money paid for a public safety campaign addressing a surge in gun thefts from cars. District Attorney Joe Gonzalez feels like the campaign made a difference.
I think it was a good campaign. We got some positive feedback.
And so you said you got positive feedback from who?
Oh, members in the community, employees in our office. I remember there was a lady that came up to me at an HEB and said, hey, I heard your radio spot. Good job.
The contract shows KGB used the money to pay for radio and newspaper ads along with a social media campaign. We got copies of emails sent from the DA's office that show his office made the contract a priority, asking for payment approval to be rushed at least 5 times. Why did it have to be rushed?
Because again, the timing of it was that I learned about it in early December. By the time we did the research to determine the funding source and that this was an appropriate use of that fund, that we were right before Christmas.
The money for the campaign was taken from the asset forfeiture funds. The DA's office says that money comes from cases that have resulted in a conviction.
That's money, a lot of times we're talking about cash that is seized in connection with drug investigations.
Gonzalez's spokesperson told us the DA can use the money for law enforcement purposes as he sees fit. But he's not using the funds to pay for additional staff like prosecutors, investigators, and victim advocates, all positions requested for funding in the latest budget. So you're saying that this asset forfeiture money could not have been used for that?
Correct, because that's the county budget you're referring to. Remember, this is federal asset forfeiture money. 2 different pots here that we're talking about.
County policy says commissioners have to approve purchases over $50,000. The KGB contract is just $500 short. As part of the contract, the DA's office also gets public relations services, which includes setting up a past December interview with KSAT. We wanted to know why the DA didn't use his 2 communication staffers to produce the campaign.
Why spend $49,500 on an outside PR firm when you have a taxpayer-funded communication staff?
Because that's not what the communication staff does. What we have are basically employees that are public information officers that deal with you and people in your station and other stations on a daily basis to respond to your inquiries, that prepare press releases, that organize press conferences.
We know through public records that one of the DA's communication staffers makes over $104,000. One of the DA's critics is Arif Panju. He's a civil liberties attorney in Austin.
That's a lot of money to spend on communications when you have your own taxpayer-funded communications department.
Gonzalez says he's happy with the results of the campaign.
This was an appropriate use of that fund, so it was important that we move on this quick, and we did.
The DA says he hopes to do similar campaigns in the future. Danielle Ibarra, KSAT 12 News.
Was it money well spent? You decide. Well, new tonight, not a big surprise here. Donald Trump has won Iowa's leadoff Republican presidential caucus, a crucial victory that gives the former president a strong start in the race for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. The contest now moves to the state of New Hampshire.
Local nonprofits are loading up with warming supplies and hot meals, getting ready to hit the streets and help those who are experiencing homelessness. We tag along in their efforts and how you at home can help.
Earlier today, we showed you how nonprofits and warming shelters had extended hours to help those without shelter.
Well, tonight, our John Paul Barajas joined those groups as they hit the streets.
You, sunshine. I'm so proud of you. You still have the foil blanket. You want some soup?
Corazon Ministries and other nonprofits take to the streets every time the weather drops to dangerous levels.
So we have lives out there, that are struggling mental health, substance use, no support, no love, don't trust anybody.
Corazon's Day Center director, Brittany Ackerson, leads one of many efforts to get those without shelter into a warm place to stay.
You want to go overnight? You want to go to Travis Park?
Wherever, yeah. Wherever.
Okay, hold on just a minute.
Ackerson then works with other nonprofits and shelters to find an opening.
I have 2 right here off of San Pedro and 410 that want to go inside.
But getting those who are experiencing homelessness indoors isn't always that easy. If you're not too cold, man?
Yes, sir, I am.
You don't want to go inside at night?
I got too much stuff,
I dealt with it firsthand. And in situations like this, hot cocoa and ramen noodles coming your way.
Oh, man, that's a blessing. Thank you.
Volunteers provide anything to keep people warm. You got hand warmers?
All right, thank you.
That's an extra one.
Okay.
Here's another blanket. And here you go, too, man. If those hand warmers run out, you got you some gloves.
Oh, man, that's what I needed.
For many of those choosing to stay in the cold, it's not their first go-around. How do you guys make it through the night?
Well, we cuddle. With lots of love, we make it through the night, and lots of prayer.
But they say they wouldn't be able to get through these tough times if it wasn't for people willing to help.
Her energy is exciting, so it's great to have people like her, to have people that don't judge.
Ackerson tells us her team stayed out till about 1 a.m. last night into today, and that they'll likely do that again tonight to make sure anyone who wants to go inside has the opportunity to do so. She also says this is a bigger opportunity than just keeping people warm. It helps them build relationships. That way they can help people get clean. We'll have more on that in our continuing coverage tomorrow. And if you'd like to donate or volunteer, we have a link on our website, KSAT.com. John Paul Barajas, KSAT 12 News.
Don't underestimate the power of a helping hand in all situations.
Yeah, I love that. 23 degrees out there right now. We're giving you a live look outside. The one thing we want to tell you about is Burbank High School. We know that that's going to be closed tomorrow because the school, apparently the building is having some issues with heating. So this is an ever, changing situation.
Not the entire district.
No.
Just Burbank High School.
Right. Okay. Now the one thing that we're done with is Precipitation.
Yes, the precipitation is over. So we are not going to see anything else when it comes to more ice accumulations. I know a lot of folks across the area woke up to an icy glaze on windshields, even some slick spots on the decks. And of course, we did unfortunately have some accidents across San Antonio, even into the hill country, because some slick spots did develop on the roadways. Now, as we were talking about a bit earlier, road conditions have drastically improved because we've seen a bit of a breeze. We also have some dry air, so that's helping. And for the most part, tomorrow morning, not nearly as bad as what we saw earlier this morning, and that's because we have dried things out across south central Texas. So great news there. You can see where some of that lingering activity is now well off to our east, floating across the deep south, Mississippi, Alabama, dealing with the whole bunch of things. We got rain, sleet, even some snow that does stretch up into the mid-Atlantic there as well. Temperatures for a good chunk of the lower 48 much colder, in the teens for places like Nashville, Louisville, even single digits as you get into the Central Plains. For us here in South Central Texas, very, very cold right now, in the 20s for most. 24 over at the airport, 21 Bulverde, the current temperature, 20 in Comfort, 25 over in Hondo. Now, something that we also have seen pick up over the past couple of hours, gustier north winds. We've seen some wind gusts now in the 20 to 25 mile per hour range. What's going to happen through the overnight? We're going to see a reinforcing push of some of this colder air move into the region. Winds are actually going to increase a bit more as we sleep. By the way, with those wind gusts where they are right now, you can see what it feels like if you were to step outside. Those wind chill values in the teens here in Bexar County. Up in Bernie, already seeing some single digit feels like temperatures. So this is what your wind gusts are expected to do through the overnight. Pick up gusts upwards of 30 to 35 miles per hour, even into the morning drive time tomorrow. That's why it's very, very important to already make note that wind chills are just going to tumble even more so as these gusts pick up. So first thing tomorrow, 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning, as you're stepping out for the morning drive and as the kiddos are headed off to school, this is what it's going to feel like. Single digits for most. As you get up into the higher elevations, even northern Bexar County, up into the hill country, we could see those wind chill values fall below zero for a couple of hours. So please bundle up, wear the layers, beanies, gloves, scarves, anything and everything, because it is just going to be a brutal start to the day. So that's what it's going to feel like. Here's what actual air temperatures are going to do. Hard freeze, upper teens for most of us, maybe even a little bit colder for places like Kerrville, Comfort, starting off near about 12 degrees. First thing tomorrow, 18 here in San Antonio. The good thing about tomorrow is we're going to see more sunshine. Today we had the cloud cover. That sunshine I do think is going to help us climb barely and briefly above freezing, but we'll definitely take it. Forecast high around 35 degrees. Most of us above freezing for a few hours tomorrow, maybe into the hill country, Bernie, Bulverde, Comfort, and Kerrville. It's going to be a close call on if we can climb above 32, but we'll watch it for you. One more hard freeze on Wednesday. Wind chills not as bad. Gusts are not going to be as high, but still very, very cold. 40s Wednesday afternoon. How about the 60s on Thursday? Yay, we're thawing out. Then another front moves in ahead of next weekend. Not nearly as strong, but it does keep that chill around into Friday and Saturday mornings, guys.
Thank you.
So South Texas, 35 on Tuesday, 67 by Thursday.
What are you going to do?
Then back down the roller coaster. All right, let's turn to sports right now. Want a bright spot in the state of Texas? How about the Texans?
How about the Texans?
Yeah.
There you go. What a surprising opening round to the NFL playoffs that was. It just wrapped up this afternoon, and one of the surprises, the Texans blowing out the Browns, and the Cowboys no-showed when it mattered. We'll break it all down. Victor Wembanyama was a problem for the Atlanta Hawks in the second half, but the Spurs' slow start hurt them. How it all went down in the ATL this afternoon after the break.
We got to win. This is Dallas Cowboys, man. We had everything to win, so we can't let this feeling keep going on. He wants to win right now. The urgency is now. I mean, it was always that. We always had that on our shoulders, but, you know, he made it clear that that was the point.
Jerry Jones had to say this afternoon, after the Cowboys' uninspired showing against the Packers, it's a time-sensitive matter for Jones, who says his time in the business is almost up. The San Antonio Spurs opening up a 5-game road stretch in Atlanta this afternoon. The story of the first half was Hawks star Trae Young. Young making it rain triples inside of State Farm Arena. Atlanta up 27 when Young pulls up from the logo and sinks it. All right, second half, Spurs rookie Victor Wembanyama stole the spotlight off the transition. Wembanyama gets up for the alley-oop slam. San Antonio mounting a comeback. It's Wembanyama driving to the basket, and he finishes with the one-handed jam. The Spurs managed to get within 6 points of the Hawks, but that early hole was too much to climb out of. Spurs dropped the first one on the road, 109-99. Now, because of that slow start, Greg Popovich had to shake things up, and here's what Wemby had to say about it.
We had probably the worst first half we've had in so far, and this is also why he changed the starting lineup in the second half. He wanted to put players he could trust to give 100% on the court, and to kind of show us also the regular starters, how we should have been, starting the game.
The Spurs next face the Celtics Wednesday at 6:30.
Football coverage brought to you by Davis Law Firm.
Mountains and mountains of snow at Highmark Stadium as the Buffalo Bills host the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC wildcard playoff. Bills strike first. Josh Allen hits Dawson Knox in the end zone for a 9-yard touchdown and the early lead. The fans jacked up, tossing snow everywhere. All right. Second quarter, Allen does what he does best, escaping the pocket, too strong to tackle, and he goes the distance, 52 yards to pay dirt. That's the second longest rushing score in the postseason by a quarterback in NFL history. Bills win 31-17. Buffalo will host Kansas City in the divisional round. And with that, Houston will play top seed Baltimore January 20th. And you just saw this. Tampa Bay dominates Philly, so the Buccaneers will play the Lions, and the Packers will face the 49ers. And as we just went over, the Texans have their divisional round matchup against the favorites, one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl, the Baltimore Ravens. The Texans advanced after a 45-14 dismantling of the Cleveland Browns. Now today, Houston head coach DeMeco Ryans reflecting on the Texans' season-opening loss to Baltimore. That final score was 25-9 Ravens.
Tough place to play, right? Rookie quarterback, right? New team, new start going out to Baltimore. You look up, I remember going in at halftime and man, we were right there, right? Going against a really tough team. We were right there, really tight game, and it kind of, they took it away in the second half. They've done an outstanding job, Baltimore, with their defense. I think they've been probably the most consistent defense throughout the entire year.
That'll be an exciting matchup. All right, the Dallas Cowboys are facing another long offseason after yet another playoff flop. The future of head coach Mike McCarthy is the most immediate question after yesterday's stunning 48-32 wildcard loss to Green Bay. Dallas was in line for multiple home playoff games as the 2 seed and NFC East champion. Instead, quarterback Dak Prescott lost a postseason opener at home for the third time in his 5 trips to the playoffs.
It ain't been 24 hours yet, and still in shock. So that's really it, really shock more than anything.
All right, after the break, the UFL draft. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United Football League conducted its 2024 Super Dispersal Draft as teams, including the San Antonio Brahmas, filled out the rest of their rosters today. Now, here's a look at how the Brahmas drafted. There at the top is former Bernie quarterback Quinton Dormandy. Awesome to see him selected number 1 overall. That's because the Brahmas were keepers of the top pick. There are 10 players that round out the Brahmas draft. So exciting stuff ahead of the season.
Yeah, which is
coming up soon. I don't have an exact
spring.
Yeah, spring.
March.
March. Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. We'll be right back.
Dress warm tomorrow morning. Wind chills in the single digits. Another hard freeze on Wednesday. Then we start to warm things back up. The latest updates tomorrow morning on GMSA. Have a good night.